We have seen it coming. This should really surprise no one. The robot overlords are here. If you look at the statistics, we could project that it's only going to change the result of about 2 pitches in an entire game. Umpires are not obsolete. The human element has not been removed from the game completely. Major League Baseball umpires are pretty good. Let's be clear about that. I don't know if it's actually all that bad, if we're going to be honest. The 2026 season, a little preview for you of next year, Major League Baseball, and not the pennant race, if you can call what we have now with all of these wildcard teams a pennant race appropriately. Not the playoffs, but the 2026 season, a little preview for you of next year, Major League Baseball making it official, the ABS system, the automated ball strike challenge system. It's going to go into effect next season. And we have seen it coming. This should really surprise no one. But it's finally official now. It is upon us. They have been using this in the minor leagues. AAA has had it since the start of the 2023 season. We saw it used in some spring training games this year. We saw it used in the All-Star game this year, and we're going to see it in every game next year because the robot overlords are here. I don't know if it's actually all that bad, if we're going to be honest with it. Each team will have 2 challenges. This is not a pure automated system. Some people think that the umpires should just have an earpiece in or be attached to some sort of electronics where the system just calls every pitch and you take it out of the umpire's hands. He's basically back there just to be a custodian of the game, and he's calling the balls and strikes as the machine, the robot ump, if you will, has said it is, using science and precision and all of that. Major League Baseball umpires are pretty good. Let's be clear about that. 94% of the time, they get it right. So missing 6 pitches out of 100 when those pitches are coming in with major league movement and major league velocity. As much as we all get on the umpires' cases, as much as we all love to say, hey, Blue, you're blind, they're doing a lot better job than you or I would do. It is a hard job. And they're still going to get to do their job. Each team is going to have 2 challenges per game, is how this is going to work. So umpires are not obsolete. The human element has not been removed from the game completely. Nowhere near it, in fact. Each team will get 2 challenges per game, and if your challenge is right, you retain it. So theoretically, if Angel Hernandez was behind the plate and you wanted to challenge him about 15 times and you were right every time, you would have the capacity to do that. But in reality, there probably won't be very many games where a team will need to challenge more than a handful of times. And I've got a little bit of data about this for you here. In AAA, all right, the challenge system was put into place June 26, 2024. And actually, we saw it happen in 13 spring training ballparks as well. At 52% of ball strike challenges were successful. Okay, so think about this. At AAA, challenges were at about 4 per game total, and the success rate was right at about 50%. So, I don't know. Are we getting worked up over nothing? The chances of you being right on the 4 calls during a game that we should see on average a challenge, maybe only about 2 of them on average are going to be successful. So this is a lot of hullabaloo. If you look at the statistics, we could project that it's only going to change the result of about 2 pitches in an entire game. So, the sky is not falling, folks, but I will say Major League Baseball believes, and perhaps there's some truth in this, although I wouldn't overrate this either based on what I just told you. About 60% of Major League ejections stem from player, manager, coach disputes over balls and strikes. So will we see fewer ejections? You know me, I believe that Aaron Boone can become one of the GOATs of all time. I always tell him, look, Bobby Cox, it's attainable. You're young. Just stay angry for about another 15 or 20 years. You could go after that record of 161 ejections that Bobby Cox has, but maybe this will actually slow Booney down a little bit, as well as other managers around the league. It'll certainly be interesting to see how it's implemented. A lot of people are pissed about this. I am generally a traditionalist, although I will say I think the pitch clock has improved the game. I think the bigger bases have led to more activity on the base pass, which I think has made the game better. I like the fact that you can't throw over to first base 6 or 7 times and slow the game down to a crawl. So overall, even as a traditionalist, I think Major League Baseball's changes in the post-COVID era have been largely to the benefit of the game, and I'm willing to give this a fair chance. Catchers who are good at framing are breathing a sigh of relief today, by the way. If you are familiar with the art of framing, which is taking a borderline pitch and skillfully moving your glove in such a way that you kind of bring it in and make it look like a strike, some major league catchers are really, really good at that, and others are not. If you went to a 100% automated system, pitch framing would absolutely be removed from the game because you can't fool the system. You can fool an umpire. And so for catchers who are making a living, partly because they're really good at that, they've got to feel good about this outcome today because their value is largely going to remain intact. Shedeur Sanders' value, I don't know what it is at this point. Do you? I don't think I've ever been as lost on a player and how good or not good that player is going to turn out to be than Shedeur Sanders. He went from being in the conversation for being the number 1 overall pick. Yes, was he overhyped in retrospect? Clearly. Getting his number retired, all of the flowers that were thrown to Shedeur Sanders, largely because of who his daddy is, let's be honest. But I can't believe that he's so bad that he doesn't belong in the NFL. And that's where some people have arrived now. One bad preseason game, after one good one, by the way. We heard the rumors that he's not running the scout team in Cleveland. And some people are ready to give up on him entirely. Predictably, among those who still believe in him is his father, Deion Sanders. And my gosh, if your parents don't believe in you, who the fuck will? Let's listen to Deion on the podcast with the Kelsey boys, Great Heights, talking about how he thinks things are going to go for Shedeur.
Be patient and be ready. You got to be ready when it's time. But when it's time, you're going to know. And it's coming up.
There we go.
You know, I got a prediction. I ain't telling nobody. I got a feeling when it's going to go down. But it's going to go down this year.
It's going to happen. All right.
Yeah, he going to get a shot.
And that's all you can ask for as a player. All you can ask for is the opportunity, right?
But how in the world can somebody fault him for saying or thinking, why in the world would I go back up Lamar for 10 more years?
For sure.
I've never sat on the bench and said, well, I learned a lot today.
All right. Well, there's a lot to unpack here, and we'll begin with me calling the Kelsey Brothers podcast Great Heights. It's New Heights is their fucking podcast. I don't know. Great Heights. Maybe I'll start my own podcast and call it Great Heights. That sounds pretty good too. Look, what's Deion going to say? What's he going to say? Shedeur, my son's not any good. I've seen it. He's going to probably need to sell insurance or open a car wash or something like that in order to make a living. Of course, he believes in his son. He's predicting that his son's going to get a chance this year. Look, I'll start with the most obvious point here. This fact that Shedeur told the Ravens, who were set to pick him 3 spots ahead of the Browns, he said, no thanks. I don't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson for the next decade, as Deion put it. Lamar Jackson is arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. If he's not the best quarterback in the NFL, he's unquestionably top 3. He's a multiple-time MVP. Go Louisville, by the way. fellow Cardinal. Shedeur Sanders is not beating out Lamar Jackson for that job now, tomorrow, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So I don't blame him. He's like everybody else. He wants to go someplace that he's going to have a chance to play. And 3 picks later, the Cleveland Browns presumably gave him about the best shot at that he could realistically have hoped for, although he finds himself third on the depth chart now behind Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel. Now, Deion predicting that it's going to happen this year, I don't know how Joe Flacco feels about that. I would hope that Joe Flacco thinks that he's going to hold on to his job this year and that Cleveland is going to exceed expectations. But again, it's part of the sideshow that Ronnie T. Shirts has talked about on this program. Would you rather have a third stringer on your team that's just quiet and unassuming and nobody ever fucking thinks about the guy? Or would you rather have a third stringer whose father is a legend and a guy who is out in the media all the time who is very quotable, saying things like he just said on the New Heights podcast? I don't know how it's going to go in Cleveland. I think Shedeur is going to have an NFL career that's longer than 30 minutes. I don't know, however, if Shedeur is ever going to be in a position where he has to worry about being behind Lamar Jackson. Right now, at this point in his career, he might be on the bench for 10 years behind any starting quarterback in the NFL, much less a great one like Lamar. Something tells me, however, that he's not going to be nearly as good as Archie Manning's kids. I think that's a pretty safe bet. Here's your all-time Super Bowl wins leaderboard, by the way. Tom Brady with 7, Joe Montana with 4, Terry Bradshaw with 4, Archie Manning's spermatozoa with 4. The only way that you're going to stop Archie Manning from winning Super Bowls is with condoms and the pill, quite frankly. And shout out to Mrs. Manning as well. She doesn't get nearly enough credit. Her DNA went into that project as well, and she must have been playing with some good stuff too, because there's a lot of great quarterbacks out there who have ejaculated not great quarterbacks. Am I right? Archie Manning's like fucking Secretariat. Like his kids are just going on and winning Triple Crown races and everything else. Mike Trout just celebrated a milestone, guys. 400 career home runs. Makes me feel old, to be honest with you, because Mike Trout still seems like a young guy to me, but he's been around long enough now that he has circled the bases 400 times on long balls. And the fan who caught number 400, a man identified by the Angels social media only as Alberto. Alberto returned the ball to Mike Trout in a dugout meeting after the game, along with his wife and his children. And as thanks for the kind gesture of returning the milestone home run ball, Mike Trout gave him 3 autographed bats, 2 autographed baseballs. And Alberto had one more request of Mike Trout, and it was that they play catch in the outfield, which they did. Although, put a glove on, Trout. For God's sake, this guy just gave you a ball that's probably worth in excess of $10,000 conservatively. That's probably a $50,000 or more item. The kid is nice enough to give it back. Credit to Alberto there, the young man, Alberto. He's a young father. He's not a kid. But he got to play a little catch with Mike Trout and had a moment there that will be certainly something I'm sure that he'll treasure. So congratulations to Mike Trout and congratulations to Alberto for doing the right thing for Mike Trout and being rewarded for it with a special occasion there. You know, the theme today on the Ricky Cobb Show is fathers and sons. And, one father-son connection that we have on this day, Bruce Pearl, announcing that he's stepping down as the head coach at Auburn. His son is going to take over for him there, and they will continue a dynasty at Auburn, the Pearl family. A dynasty like we just saw a second ago on the screen in Baltimore. The Ripkins Cal Ripken Sr., Cal Ripken Jr., and Billy Ripken. And I tweeted this, of course, imagining there that Cal Sr. is saying, every time I watch Billy play, I thank God you're the one that I named after me. You know, if you're going to give your name to one of your sons, give it to the guy that becomes a legend. Don't give it to the son that's hanging in the league by a thread. Well done, Cal Sr. You chose wisely there. Baseball has obviously got a lot of father and son theming through the years. Fathers playing catch with their sons. Fathers passing down the fandom and traditions to their sons. Here's one of my favorites. There are two power hitters from two different eras, Cecil Fielder and his son Prince. And I've tweeted this, obviously, and this is one of my favorite baseball statistical nuggets. One of the absolute best baseball stats. Cecil Fielder and Prince Fielder are tied on the all-time home run list in Major League Baseball, 319 and 319. How about that? Couldn't make it up. Equal power. And Prince is like 9 there, by the way, too. Look at what a beast this kid was at 9 years old. I think he's 9 there, something like that. He was a monster. And I used to go up to Milwaukee and watch him play. And I mean, you want to talk about a power hitter. Both of these guys, when they got into one, they could hit it a mile. I saw Cecil hit them out at Tiger Stadium in Detroit. So both of those guys had light tower power. It ran in the family. And speaking of running in the family, the Griffeys know a little something about that. History made in 1990, of course, when the Mariners started Ken Griffey Sr. in left, Ken Griffey Jr. in center, and Bigfoot in right field. Jay Buhner had the day off that day. And of course, Bigfoot went 1 for 4 that day with a RBI double. He's kind of looks like he's sort of got the Hulk Hogan mustache going there. I know that's from Harry and the Hendersons. It's a bad early 90s comedy is what that is. And then Nolan Ryan didn't have any children who made Major League Baseball, but he would strike the fuck out of you and your kid. Nolan Ryan struck out 8 father and son combinations, and he got 2 of Sandy Alomar Sr.'s kids. How's that? I'll strike out the whole fucking family. Give your wife a bat. I'll strike out Mrs. Alomar too, if she wants to get in there and dig in. The list, I'll let you know, because I looked this up. This is interesting. He struck out Dick Schofield and Dick Schofield's son, Dick Schofield, who didn't go by Junior. He struck out Tony Perez and Eduardo Perez, Hal McRae and Brian McRae, Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr., Tito Francona and Terry Francona, Bobby Bonds and Barry Bonds, and everybody in the fucking Alomar family. 26 years in the big leagues and a 100-mile-an-hour plus fastball. It was bound to happen, wasn't it? You can't miss it. So now let's turn our attention to golf, shall we? The Ryder Cup is coming up in New York at Bethpage Black, starting on Friday. The United States, of course, trying to reclaim it. Europe coming off of a victory in Italy in 2023. And the U.S. has struggled in the Ryder Cup over the last 30 years or so. And Scottie Scheffler may be ushering in a little different energy with the team rooms, because Tiger Woods, let's talk about Tiger a little bit, shall we? Tiger Woods, 15 career majors, tied with Sam Snead for the most wins in the history of the tour. And I actually think he should be ahead of Snead, because some of Snead's were paired events where he won the tournament with another guy. Back in the old days, they used to have more tournaments like that. Tiger's either the greatest or he's the second greatest. I consider Nicklaus and Woods to be 1 and 1A. If you want to talk about career body of work, let's give it to Nicklaus because 18 is the number. Tiger himself, that was the number that he had on his bedroom wall when he was a kid. And it looked like he was going to get it because he had 14 by the time he was 32. Only got one more. Of course, I speak of the 2019 Masters that had more than a small resemblance to Jack Nicklaus's 1986 Masters, which was his last win. But one area where Tiger did not check the box during his absolutely illustrious, legendary career was the Ryder Cup. Tiger was only on one winning Ryder Cup team his entire career. Think about that. Imagine that. Absorb that. His teams went 1-7. 8 Ryder Cup appearances. Only one time did the team bring it back. And I think largely it's because team golf wasn't what Tiger did. Tiger enjoyed intimidating people. Tiger enjoyed putting up an aura around himself. And he used it to great effect as he was really putting a stranglehold on the PGA Tour for about a 10-year period. But it didn't necessarily make him the greatest guy that you wanted at the Ryder Cup. However, the world's current number one player has a far different disposition. Scottie Scheffler, not the captain of this team. And I'm not trying to say that Scottie's more important than Keegan Bradley, the youngest captain that we've seen. Not even 40 years old yet. But when you're as good as Scottie Scheffler is, people are going to look to you and look up to you, whether you want that or not. Vice Captain Gary Woodland, former U.S. Open champion, says it's different to have somebody that's that good and been that dominant to come in with no ego. Keegan Bradley, the captain, going on to say, I think what's most impressive about Scottie is just the person that he is. I admire him. I look up to Scottie. I'm not afraid to say that. He does a lot of things right, shows up at the golf course, shows up in the team room. Obviously, he'll be a big part of our team at Bethpage. Obviously, he's the number one player in the world. 15 wins and 3 majors and a gold medal since the beginning of 2024. And just a humble, unassuming guy who is about 9,000 times more approachable and normal than Tiger Woods. Now, he's not going to win it by himself, clearly. It's 12 on 12. And the U.S. has one guy on the team who is a little bit different than everybody else because there's only one guy from Live Golf that is on Team USA, and I speak of the 2-time U.S. Open champion Bryson DeChambeau, who the Golf Channel's Brandel Chambly just had some very, let's say, unflattering, perhaps, remarks about. Let's listen.
I thought it was pretty poignant there when he asked about the retort of Rory that he didn't mention the goal this week of a Ryder Cup. Nope, he didn't do that. He didn't talk about playing on a team and how much that meant. Nope, he didn't do that. What he did do was talk about his YouTube channel, which, you know, if we want to talk about the numbers that are generated from that, it's pretty dubious. I have no doubt that bots are generating a lot of those views. There may be some interest as well, but that's what he wants to talk about. Not the team, not the Ryder Cup. And
you got to throw shade at the guy's YouTube channel? Bryson's YouTube channel's pretty good. Actually, I've watched it a few times. You know, bots are on his YouTube channel. He took the Saudi blood money. Brandel Chambly just doesn't like Bryson DeChambeau, and he hates Live Golf. So I think the fact that Bryson is a Live guy is not setting well for him. But Scottie Scheffler has a little different orientation on it. I want to go to what Scottie had to say about Bryson, because Scottie believes actually something far different, that Bryson might even be the secret weapon of Team USA.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bryson, he's a tremendous competitor. He's a great partner as well. I partnered with him in 2021 at Whistling Straits, and he was a tremendous guy to be out there on the golf course with. He's a great guy. He's a good friend, and you know, he's been great in our team room. Like you said, he brings a lot of energy The people love him, and I think he loves the opportunity to be able to represent his country. You know, he's a multiple-time U.S. Open winner, and that means a lot to him. And being an American, I think, means a lot to him as well. And I'm excited to kind of unleash him this.
Who fires up a gallery any more than Bryson DeChambeau in modern times in golf? We've seen it time and time again, the way that he relates to the people, the way that the people relate to him, and with the Ryder Cup hanging in the balance on U.S. soil, I got to believe that Bryson DeChambeau could be bringing the kind of energy to the team that could make him a potential MVP of this, even though Scottie Scheffler is the best player in the world. And what fires up Super 70 Sports Nation any more than what I'm about to do? Because, folks, it's time for America's Poll of the Day, and let's go to it now at Super 70 Sports on X, where the eagle flies higher than a Bryson DeChambeau driver, as it ends up 360 yards down the fairway. And here is what the Eagle has brought for us today. We have roller coasters, Air Jordans, your first car, always a milestone in anyone's life. Your first pair of Air Jordans is a milestone as well. And then Anchorman. These are the four that we have today. And joining me for the poll today, P.A. Jared. And Jared, as I know that we were concerned about as a young man of 23 years, you have so much living left to do. There's so many things that I grew up on that you don't remember. So I've tried to tailor this poll to be something that you're going to be ready to speak on all four of these, I think. Break it down for me, Jared, as only you can.
Yeah, so my only real suggestion here was Anchorman, because I know you and I have talked about it plenty of times. I call you Fantana and you call me Champ. So, yeah, clearly I like that movie a lot, but you did a pretty good job in terms of giving me some options that I may want over it. I'm a big roller coaster guy. There's a lot of people that aren't, though. I've learned that over the years, but hell of a lot of fun. I had a sneakerhead phase when I was in about 7th grade. I remember I saved up a good like $350 to get Carmine 6s, and I had a pair of Legend Blue 11s too. So I don't really, Air Jordans don't nearly mean as much to me anymore. Obviously iconic, but to me, if you ask me in 7th grade, easy answer, but not really as much anymore. I'm not a huge car guy. It's not something that interests me. It's a lot of my family is very into it, but doesn't really do it for me. I have a Camry, a white Camry, the most average car you can probably have, and I would be totally fine with that if I had it for the rest of my life.
Practical.
Yeah, exactly. It gets the job done, gets me from point A to point B. It's all good. But Anchorman's the answer. Anchorman 2 is the best comedy of all time. I have probably seen it a good 15 times. The fight in the end with all the different fucking news teams, it's so funny. And every time I watch it, I find something new about that movie that I think is funny. The first one's great. The second one is better. I have to go Anchorman. Anchorman would win most of any poll for me, but these are good options.
The slow motion RV accident is
so good.
Some of the finest comedy ever committed to celluloid. I would agree with you on that. All right, so let me go through this quickly. I'm not a roller coaster guy, Jared. I have never been a roller coaster guy. I want no part of a roller coaster at this point in my life. I'm going to throw up. I'm not going to enjoy it. It's just going to be a lose-lose situation for me. So whenever I go to an amusement park or a carnival, I am always happy to let my daughters take on the roller coaster, and I avoid it. Air Jordans, I had a pair of Jordan 1s, man. Like, I remember the day that I got them. I remember what a moment that was for me. I remember taking them out of the box and trying them on in the store. And if I had known what was going to happen, I would have bought a couple of extra boxes and I would have just socked them away somewhere and held on to them. I would have been doing that with a lot of my baseball cards as well. My first car was a blue 1987 Pontiac Sunbird. And about a week after maybe a week, 2-3 weeks after I bought it, I found out that there was another guy in town. And remember, I was from a small town, Jared, like population 2,500, right? And about a week, 2 weeks after I bought the car, I found out that there was another guy who had a car just like it. And apparently he sold drugs or something, and everybody called it the Dope Mobile.
There you go.
So it's always good to know after you get your first car that you're driving the Dope Mobile's doppelganger around your town. And then
you got a good nickname.
Yeah, great job by me, And then Anchorman is obviously really good. So for me, roller coasters are out. I wrecked that Sunbird 3 times in the first year that I had it, Jared. I'm lucky to fucking be alive. So the memories of that are not so great. Never really got hurt, but I'm lucky. And then, so it comes down to Air Jordans and Anchorman. At the end of the day, since Jordans have not really been my thing for a while, I'm going to vote for Anchorman as well, Jared. So let's go ahead and light the candle and see what the public has to say here about this one. One of these options is going to be moving on to, I suppose it'll be Championship Thursday this week, Jared, as we won't have a program on Friday. I'll be in Las Vegas this weekend, and
so disappointed.
It is your first car. Look at that.
I knew it was going to happen, and I get it, but it's near and dear to my heart, and it sucks. But
dude, I'm thinking of it in terms of like my specific first car. I don't know if people are thinking of it in terms of their first car or in general. Apparently, the public decided that it was a little bit more of a situation where they're going to look at it kind of in general, perhaps, because my first car wasn't anything to write home about.
Yeah,
but it's your freedom, right? Is a large part of what it represents. All right, let's take it to a break now, and when we come back, I'm going to be joined by Outkick's senior NFL reporter and friend of the program, the great Armando Salguero. And we got a lot more for you ahead as well. Don't you go anywhere. Stick around. It'll all happen straight ahead, right here, right after this on The Ricky Cobb Show.
Football's finally back. So's the hard-hitting gridiron action on Prize Picks. Download Prize Picks and use code OUTKICK and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
And welcome back to the program, my friends. 3 weeks of the NFL season are in the books now, and who better to join us and help us make sense of it than Outkick's senior NFL writer and friend of the program, the great Armando Salguero. Armando, how's it going?
Yeah, there's nobody better than me, Ricky. So I'm just going to roll with your intro and just latch on and go for the ride. Nobody better than me.
That's it. Hey, if you don't believe it yourself, why should anybody else believe it? It worked for Muhammad Ali. I think it's still effective, Armando. So speaking of effective, the New York Giants, an ineffective first 3 weeks of the season. It looked like the Kansas City Chiefs were doing their best to try to give the Giants an opportunity for an upset week 3. They didn't seem to want it. And so Russell Wilson, the new acquisition, of course, probably a future Hall of Famer, is going to head to the bench, and Jackson Dart is going to have his opportunity here 3 weeks into the season. How high should the hopes be, realistically, for Giants fans that Jackson Dart can come out and help them catch some lightning in a bottle?
Yeah, so the hopes are going to be sky high to watch Jackson Dart play. But I don't know that the reasoning is what you're thinking. I don't think Giants fans are going, Jackson Dart's going to save the season. I don't think that's the thing. I think the thing is Jackson Dart, the era has begun. Let's see some development. Let's see some, advancement. Let's see something better than what we've had, which is inconsistent play from Russell Wilson, Just not good enough, winless. An offense that's averaging 18 and a half points a game, which isn't going to win too many NFL games. An offense that is bad on third down and bad in the red zone. Is the NFL a league that passes on third down and in the red zone, thus making the quarterback pretty important on third down in the red zone? Yeah, absolutely. And so if the team is bad on third down and in the red zone, and the coach the day before was talking about we have problematic reads and throws, that's on the quarterback. So it's all about Jackson Dart right now. And not necessarily save the season, but save us in some regard.
All right, Armando. There was a guy I remember I went to high school with, and he was notorious at lunch period. He would walk around, and if he thought that somebody wasn't going to finish an item on their tray, he would be like, "You going to eat those tater tots? You going to eat the rest of that?" That must be maybe how the Cincinnati Bengals feel right now as they look around at guys like Russell Wilson holding clipboards right now at this point in time. You said it on the show last week, Armando. I rattled off some pretty good statistics from Jake Browning in 2023, and you were pretty clear that you didn't think that he was going to be the answer. And 1 week into the Jake Browning portion of the season, you're looking like a genius. Maybe you are as great as I profess you to be, because you nailed the hell out of that take. How concerning are you here? The Bengals finally get off to a good start. 2-0. They don't know how to act 2-0. Then they lose Burrow, and then the Vikings just beat the living hell out of them. What are they going to do now? Looking ahead to the rest of their season, are they really going to entrust this to Jake Browning, or is the GM going to be on the phone this week?
Yeah, no, I don't think he's on the phone this week, but give it a couple more weeks or a couple more outings like the one that Jake Browning just had. And trust me, they're going to be this will be the I guess the inside look of the general manager's office, the ownership office for Mike Brown, if Jake Browning has a couple of more games like the one he just had. Here we go. You ready to go inside that office? This is an Outkick exclusive. Here's the inside of the office and what it sounds like. That's what it would sound like, because there would be a terrible, terrible chaos. This isn't what they thought they were getting. They thought they were getting the guy that everybody else thought they were getting. He went 4-3 when he was last a starter for them when Joe Burrow was injured 2 years ago. But let's face it, man, he is a backup quarterback for a reason. There's a shortage of good starting quarterbacks to the point where people like Sam Darnold, people like Baker Mayfield, people like that get recycled over and over until they finally hit. Jake Browning's never gotten a chance to be a starter in the NFL. No one's bought into it because they see things that just don't convince them to believe in him in that role. Unfortunately for the Bengals, he's in that role now. The problem for the Bengals is twofold. Number one, they paid a lot for that offense with Joe Burrow, and so they're in trouble from a cap standpoint to go out and find a guy like a Kirk Cousins or anyone else. And number two, they paid a lot for that offense and not a lot for the defense. So they're going to be giving up some points. And if Jake Browning is also going to be giving up some points as he did on Sunday, I just don't see them staying above water.
All right, let's look at the team that just laid them to waste this week, the Minnesota Vikings, who I have been critical of on this show repeatedly, because nothing against J.J. McCarthy, who may end up being a fine NFL quarterback. Armando, as you know, no rookie quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl, and this is his rookie year, right, in terms of seeing action. So a 14-win team and they decide that they're comfortable going with J.J. McCarthy. We've seen a great fourth quarter on Monday night in his debut. We have seen outside of that fourth quarter a guy who looks like a rookie quarterback who is not going to come into the league and start swimming like Jaden Daniels and guys like that by any means. So Carson Wentz can Carson Wentz play himself into this job? Are they bound and determined that it's going to be J.J. McCarthy? If Carson Wentz plays some good football, do they still just hand it back over to J.J.? And if they do, how long do they stick with him before they decide that, well, maybe we got a real Super Bowl chance here and we need somebody to kind of, Trent Dilfer us to the finish line?
Well, they're bound and determined about J.J. McCarthy until they're not bound and determined. And the way that they're going to judge that is Carson Wentz had a great, debut as their new starting quarterback. Carson Wentz has been around the block, 6 teams in the last 6 years, I believe. So he's been around 6 blocks. If he continues to play like that, there is nobody that's going to bench Carson Wentz. Nobody. The obvious issue is, can Carson Wentz maintain? That's the big one. He hasn't in the past. He had that 1 year where he was a borderline MVP candidate, if not outright, and then he got hurt, and then the Eagles, went on without him. Carson Wentz was that, French foreign legionnaire who was in the desert going, "Go on without me, I'll be fine." And the Eagles said, "Okay." And they went and they won the Super Bowl. I would say to you that because Kevin O'Connell has great confidence in himself and his quarterbacks, that he is going to ride Carson Wentz until Carson Wentz either breaks down or just wins the job outright. And he's partially the way there, because those 3 quarters and a half that Carson Wentz played, they're better than the 1 quarter that J.J. McCarthy got right in the 2 previous games.
All right, Armando, tell me how for real these Colts are. Three wins and 1 punt is where we stand right now in the Daniel Jones Indianapolis era. How good are they really? Because we know they're not that good. Nobody is. But what do they have under the tank here, as you've seen 3 weeks now from them?
Well, so in 3 weeks, they've scored 103 points. And that's the most points that the Colts have ever scored since they've been in Indianapolis. I think they arrived in Indianapolis in 86 or 87. That is also the most points that the Colts franchise has scored the first 3 games going back to 1967. In 1967, Johnny freaking Unitas was the quarterback, and he won the MVP, title or whatever award. And that is a team that has had Peyton Manning in Indianapolis and Andrew Luck in Indianapolis, and they haven't had seasons where they started the first 3 games with 103 points. So it bears
Shout out to Burt
recognition.
Jones too.
Exactly. It bears recognition what they have done under Daniel Indiana Jones and Jonathan Taylor. It really is impressive. Having said all that, having told you how awesome that they are, I would say that it's a small sample size. I would say that there's a larger sample size that we've all seen of Daniel Jones. And I would add that there's a thing called regression to mean sometimes that, rears its ugly head. And so what are we going to see from Daniel Jones? Was Daniel Jones a victim of the New York Giants, or did he victimize the New York Giants? We're going to find out We're going to find out in the next 14 games.
Armando, as you know very well, the NFL has received a lot of criticism for the messages in the end zones, overtime, and the way that they have chosen to recognize certain things and maybe not recognize other things. And I know that you have a take on this. The fact that the NFL is actually on the topic of Charlie Kirk and paying respect to him, the NFL seems to be at the forefront of American sports.
Yeah. So, at our shop at Outkick, we get a lot of folks that just dismiss the NFL as woke. And I get it. They hearken back to the George Floyd, era. They hearken back to Colin Kaepernick. They talk about how those signs and the slogans in the end zones and before that on the field and so forth. I get all that. It's a fair criticism. It's a fair observation. But this is also a fair observation. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, no other sports league has responded to the height and the depth that the NFL has responded in paying tribute to him. None. The NFL came out 2 days after he was killed, and on Thursday Night Football, which was the football game of the day and night that day, the only one, the NFL mandated a tribute to Charlie Kirk at the Green Bay Packers Lambeau Field. The following Sunday, the NFL said teams are now on their own. They are free to choose what way they go. Well, the bottom line is here we stand, 2 weeks later, and 11 teams paid tribute to Charlie Kirk. And the list is, they're all over the country. The Packers, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Jets, the Steelers, the Titans, the Cardinals, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Browns this last Sunday. And my point is that if you're accusing the NFL of being woke, you have to have the same standard for other sports. Because I only saw a couple of college teams at their home games paying tribute to Charlie Kirk. Oregon, Charlie Kirk's team did not have a tribute to Charlie Kirk at their game this last weekend. Major League Baseball, 2 teams that I know of, the Cubs and the Yankees had a tribute to Charlie Kirk. Everybody else did not. I'm not even going to mention the WNBA. So my point is this. The idea that the NFL is super woke, I would say to you, well, the NFL was the one that was most, and obviously not in a majority, but was the most outspoken about honoring a guy who was obviously a conservative icon and now, unfortunately, a conservative Christian martyr.
All right, Armando, appreciate you as always, my friend. By the way, before you get out of here, let me ask you, Chiefs Ravens here. Somebody's going to be 1-3. The Chiefs, they're 1-2, and they didn't look good in the one. How do you see this one going down, and how concerning is it to begin the season 1-3 if you're either one of these teams?
No, it's super concerning. You've got teams that were picked by some or others to go to the Super Bowl. It's as simple as that. And now you're the first month of the season and you're under 500 and you're trailing. The Chiefs could be 1-3. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Chargers could be 4-0. How do you make up 3 games the rest of the season? And I get it. Look, the Chiefs are going to get people back. Xavier Worthy is going to come back from being trucked by Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice is going to be back by being, off of the suspension by the NFL. They're going to get better. But still, it's like that, those videos now that are popular where the guy has his wife run for like 20 seconds and then he goes and chases her and catches her. Well, except in this case, the Chiefs are the guy waiting 20 seconds, but, there's a sprinter that got the 20-second lead. It's hard to catch that person. Whereas the Ravens, they've got issues on their defense that are terrible, not physical. They don't seem to have a killer instinct. And we saw that in the game against the Bills, where they let Josh Allen have a quarter for the ages, where that particular week, I think he threw for 256 yards or something in that quarter. And that was more than 22 teams threw for their entire 4 quarters that week in their games. So you give that up and they lost 41-40 in a comeback victory for the Bills, you don't know how to step on somebody's neck.
All right, Armando, we appreciate it as always, my friend. You are, in fact, the great Armando Salguero, as always, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time.
Be well, Rick.
All right. Good stuff, as always, from Armando. And I don't know, how do you suppose you would feel if you were a big-time coach and your daughter was dating the star player on the other team's defense? How would you feel about that? Maybe we should ask Lane Kiffin, because he knows. Lane Kiffin's daughter, Landry, is dating Whit Weeks, LSU star linebacker. And that game is coming up this weekend. It's a civil war within the Kiffin family, perhaps. Who do you root for? Do you root for your boyfriend? Do you root for your dad? Where are Landry Kiffin's loyalties lying this week? I can tell you one thing, though, that if those two ever get married, I can already tell you without a doubt that Lane Kiffin is the man to give the toast at the wedding reception. As I tweeted some while back, you can see here, Ole Miss was projected to win 7.6 games, but I just looked at that photo of Lane and I said, he looks like a dad who's about 7 cocktails in at a wedding reception and about to do the Macarena before having a loud argument with his wife about whether or not his toast was in poor taste. God bless Lane Kiffin for that. In fact, I believe that he can pull that off in real life one day if those two are ever joined in holy matrimony. Let's go to poll replies, shall we? See what folks are saying about today's poll of the day. It is going to be your first car just cruising into Championship Thursday this week. As I said, we are not going to have a program this Friday because I'm going to Las Vegas to see Tears for Fears. That's just how it is. Everybody wants to rule the world, my friends. Mark says, stay classy, San Diego. Yeah, stay classy. Every country, every city in this country, I'm trying to say. Ken Westside, his first car was a sweet-ass 1981 Buick Regal. Look at that. Mine had wire wheels. I still miss her. I learned to drive in a 1983 Buick Regal, by the way, so I can relate. The Moops says, snuck past the height requirement for my first ride on the racer at Kings Island, busted my lip, and wore it proudly. And I want no part of it. I want absolutely zero part of any roller coaster. Ronnie T-Shirts is not here. I can hear him mocking me somewhere out in the American West, wherever that motherfucker is right now. I don't even care. And the poet laureate of Super 70s, the great Jim Kaiser, says a puke green Dodge Dart, vintage 1970, and she was all mine. See, that is poetry right there. That is poetry. Let's take a recap real quick on the NFL picks. As you may know, Ronnie and I have a season-long NFL battle on picks, and let's see where we stand now, 3 weeks into this. I believe that I continue to trail Ronnie. I almost don't want to see this, but there are my picks this week. I put my faith in the Ravens at home against the Lions, and that didn't work out. I didn't have any faith in my Bears, and Caleb Williams punished me for it on Sunday. I did believe that the Chiefs would cover on the road against the Giants, and although they tried very hard not to, they ultimately did. And the one that I ultimately am proud of this week is I had the Panthers plus 5.5. They shut out the Falcons 30-0. So 2-2 for me this week, and I'm 5-7 on the season so far. Ronnie T-Shirts, on the other hand, well, 2-2 for him as well. He had the Falcons, so I won our little head-to-head matchup, but Ronnie took 2 of 3. He also had the Cowboys, but the Eagles, yeah, that fucking block kick return. That is a sickening way for Ronnie T-Shirts to win a game against me. You ought to be 6-6, you lucky son of a bitch. But Ronnie maintains being ahead. And before we go, a quick shout out to the greatest looking jerseys that have graced an NFL field so far this season. The sweet, sweet 1976 Tampa Bay Buccaneers throwbacks. The Buccaneers tweeting out the best uniform combo in the NFL, period. And I simply said, make this permanent. If you really believe that you have the best uniform combo in the NFL, period, why do you want to wear it 2 or 3 times a year? Why don't you want to wear that all the time, or nearly all the time, says the guy with Bucko Bruce next to him on your screen right now. You know how I feel about this. All right, my thanks today, as always, to Armando Salguero for joining the program, to Molly and Colin in Nashville, to P.A. Jarrett, and to Nick for being a part of this and helping us out while Tim is away. And most of all, as always, I thank you, you sweet bastards. You're the reason that we do this. You're the reason that I have this platform. I appreciate it, and I love you. You can find us, as always, at Fox Nation, outkick.com, and on YouTube at The Ricky Cobb Show is our new channel, so go and check that out. We are in podcast form on both Apple and Spotify, and you can also find our content on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, where you can also find me at Super 70 Sports, because that's what I do every day. And I also do this show 5 days a week, and so I hope that we can make a deal right now that you'll join me again tomorrow when we will tee it high and let it fly with another episode of The Ricky Cobb Show.